Fantastic. So as Jenny says, I'm going to talk you guys through the technical side of hybrid. But firstly, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Lewis. I'm a project manager working with Talking Slides. We've worked with Jenny and Fitwise for many, many years across all three of the formats of the events that are very popular at the moment. So virtual and hybrid, and everything backed up with physical production as well. So the world of hybrid events can be very confusing, much as it has been for virtual events. It's very much a jungle out there. Is to know firstly what a hybrid event is, and then secondly, what are the different elements of that you can put together in order to produce the event that's right for you. So we'll go through 6 different building blocks plus some bonus tips at the end for you based on our experience of what you can choose from to make things work for you. And make sure you're getting the best out of a hybrid event and everything is done for the right reasons and the right benefit. So firstly, and the most obvious, is the live stream. So that is allowing an online audience to access your conference as well as your physical delegates. But really, to be completely transparent, you shouldn't just live stream for the sake of it, as much as we'd love to spend all of your event budget on it. You really have to consider who you're live streaming to and why. And as written on the slide, a very common concern that we get from delegates, organisers, exhibitors, anybody really, is that when they know that an event is being live streamed, is that going to have a knock-on effect and reduce the physical numbers? Is it going to split your audience? So you need to consider whether that is going to be an effect with your delegates or whether you want to encourage them to be at the venue. Pardon me. Secondly, when choosing your audience, really the biggest benefit of a live stream you can get is to extend the audience. So this would be an international audience that would otherwise attend, or such as with an educational conference that we've done this year and last year, they opened it up to schools and colleges who wouldn't have otherwise attended. So they had their usual physical delegate base, but then they opened it up to schools and colleges who gathered in their classrooms to watch. So just 2 examples there. And to go a little bit deeper into the production side of live streaming, you really don't have to spend a fortune in order to get it online. It is very much one of those things that the more you throw at it, the nicer it's going to look. So it can be anything on a sliding scale from something like this, which is a simple combination of a camera shot and a direct feed of the presentation and media content, which we, as standard, produce in nice picture-in-picture branded background to match the style of your event, which is then seamlessly switched between holding slides and any other content that you need to show. Or you can take it right up to multi-camera and multi-feed production. So this is an example of one that we did recently, which included medical scanning, roving cameras on stage to follow the action alongside a lectern and a panel setup, and we were chopping and changing as we went through this to create a really fantastic production. And one big no-no, speaking from a technical perspective, is that you really should avoid simply putting a camera at the back of the room. We've seen this time and time again where somebody wants to live stream a conference. They set up a camera, set it onto Facebook Live, and it's really difficult for delegates to see and hear. And here's an example of that. It's really not cohesive to a great online experience. So you should consider that when considering where on the sliding scale of production you want to be. But my recommendation is don't do that. And as Jenny mentioned earlier on, as well as live streaming, you can also consider simply recording for on-demand access. It may be that you invite everybody to your physical conference and then make it available afterwards for people to either recap, or for those that couldn't make it to access. So you don't have to live stream to make it a hybrid event, quote unquote. You can extend your audiences and access post-event by using this method instead. So you kind of get the best of both worlds if you're worried about diluting your audience at the venue. And as it says here, we very much live in an on-demand world. You know, you can take hold of that, apply it to your conference, and we very often see end clients selling access to their conference for up to 12 months after it's taken place prior to the next annual conference. So there's some advantages to be had there as well. And just to go a little bit deeper into what Jenny mentioned with live remote presentations, the big key thing there is that you don't have to bring them in if they've got travel restrictions, etc. So you can bring them in remotely, as shown in this example here. They'll appear on screen clearly to your delegates in the venue and online in this produced kind of format. And again, just another kind of blooper to avoid. We have seen fairly frequently at a physical event whereby nothing had been planned of this sort. Somebody shows up with a laptop and says, oh, such and such is going to come in by Zoom now. We've just got this laptop and just pop it in the corner. Is that all right? No, it doesn't really work that way. Again, it's just reduced quality. So the process that we like to undertake is that we will set up a Zoom room, so commonly and easily accessed by presenters. They'll be greeted by a technician. We'll go through the process with them to make sure that the camera is good, the microphone is okay, the lighting in the room is okay. And what we'll also do is feed back into that Zoom room a camera feed of the room and also the audio from all of the microphones in the room. So two-way communication is really easy and really slick. So your presenters will look something like this up on your projection screen. And as mentioned just now, they'll be able to see and hear everything that's in the conference room, and we'll bring them up on screen seamlessly when prompted. So it's a very smooth process. And again, if they're not available at all, you can opt to pre-record them. And our pre-recording process is similarly to just described for the remote panelist process, whereby we run a professional system with dedicated recording technicians. So we can put out appointments to your presenters that need to pre-record with us. They'll come in, we'll ensure that we get the best out of their camera, microphone and lighting, etc., so we can achieve the best we can from a remote production. And also they have the opportunity to get this right. So our technicians will monitor the internet connections and so forth, or likewise, if the presenter makes a mistake on a slide, they can stop, they can go back on slide and continue from there. We will then edit that down into one seamless presentation for which you guys will get review links as well as the presenters to be signed off, ready to play at conference. So you know that it's safe and it's in the bag and everything is present and correct and ready to play. And a popular combination that we see is both of those together. So it may be that you want to have their presentation pre-recorded so we can play that out, and then they just join for the Q&A either at the end of their presentation or at the end of their session, which is useful whereby their schedule is unknown for the day. So with lots of medical conferences that we deal with, certain doctors and other medical professionals will be on call, so they're not entirely sure when they'll be available, but the presentation is then there ready to go, and then they can just pop in as and when available during a panel discussion. And this is probably my favorite piece of advice to give when planning a hybrid event as far as technicals go. And the point being is it's so important to empower your online audience with asking ability and participation as it is with your physical audience. So one of our favorite tools for this is Slido. This embeds seamlessly onto the platform, and I'm sure many of you have come across Slido before in its traditional form when physical delegates will use their mobile devices to ask questions and answer polls. Now, the beauty of this is when it's embedded into a live stream, and it is also being used by delegates in the audience at the venue, the questions and poll answers all end up in the same place. So it's effectively gluing your audiences together. Each sets of your audiences can see each other's questions, they can participate in the same polls, and it's super easy for your chairs and leads for each session to manage because we will provide an iPad to the top table or similar, and they can just see everything coming in one place. And then we'll clear down each set of questions that have come in after each session so they don't get muddled up. So everything's super straightforward, nothing really technical for you guys to fathom out on site, and it really involves your online audience as much as possible. So just a couple of extra tips on this. We have seen a physical event that we have done for a number of years go hybrid for the first time this year, just back in February, and they were a little bit concerned because they'd never had their delegates use any sort of tech to answer questions, etc. So they're worried about the take up of that, but a couple of simple methods to get around that is firstly open with a test question and poll, just to get everybody moving with that and get their phones out ready to go, so the first session doesn't suffer from delegates not being quite ready to participate in that way. And also you can advertise the side of event code on holding slides, pull up banners, QR codes I've seen on programs are also quite successful. And I've not seen a situation where that's been implemented where it has not been a good high percentage of usage for that tool. And as Jenny touched on in a couple of different ways earlier on, platform choice is important. And there's lots of things to consider with this. So firstly, do you want this to go out to a public audience? So out on a public YouTube link or your social media, or is it going to be a private delegate base? Therefore, you need a private platform. And also, do you want to have your posters online as well as your exhibition? And then also, different platforms offer different sponsorship opportunities as well. Some of you may have had experience with virtual exhibitions. Hybrid events give you the best of both worlds, because you can have a virtual exhibition space as well with contact forms, but also don't be afraid to provide us, as well as your presentation content for your speakers, with adverts and videos to play in the break, which really is the money shot for online delegates, because that's where most of their attention is during the event and the platform that you're using. And also do consider the technical support that's available to them. So with any virtual or hybrid event, your presenters and yourselves will receive full support. And we also offer full support to the delegates as well, to ensure that they're not left out in the cold, and they can get in and ultimately enjoy the content that they've paid to access. And again, just a few extra little tips that we've found ourselves giving out as we've continued to do virtual and hybrid events over the years. Firstly, don't forget the virtual audience. Address them in the same way that you address your physical audience at the start of the day. Highlight the benefits of a hybrid event. Remind your physical delegates that there are people online as well. And the benefits as such, and that you've been able to bring in speakers that were otherwise unobtainable, etc. Remind delegates how to participate in the tech available to them and where they can receive technical support if required. That's usually very simple, something along the lines of, don't forget to submit questions below the stream, and there's a help button at the top of the page to assist you if you need any help. And then a couple of bonus tips and tricks to go with that. So address your online audience. One thing that we say quite a lot here is treat the camera like a VIP. Don't forget that they're there. When you finish a session, do make it clear to the guys online what time you're coming back, etc. And also, one thing I've seen many times, which works very well, is that as well as any dedicated polling sessions that you might have, you might choose to appoint a moderator to utilize the polling systems available to you, and just trigger those ad hoc as presenter is talking about a particular topic. You can just drop polls in as they go in. That's a really useful tool to keep the online audience engaged. But all of that aside, we do still recommend that you have traditional microphones available. That's a common question that we get. I would certainly say that you do, because firstly, whilst interactive questions and digital questions are very popular and very successful, there will still be delegates in the room that do want to give presenters a good grilling, for lack of a better term, and also have a bit of backwards and forwards conversation. So still do implement that. And again, going back to treating the online audience like a VIP, particularly with small events, it's very tempting for delegates just to shout questions out. But as a chair or somebody running that event, it is important to encourage that the microphone is used, because otherwise the online audience won't be able to hear all that well. And then finally, and a very obvious point, but quite often overlooked, I in recent months have delivered live streams and brought in remote presenters from castles in the middle of nowhere with hardly any internet available at all. When you're choosing your venue from a technical perspective, the only thing you really need to ensure is that they have high speed, preferably hardwired internet available to us. So I hope that's been helpful. I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end, but for now I'm going to hand over to Katie, who is going to speak about how to market a hybrid event to your delegates. Thank you.